and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh.
Yeah.
I can't speak to you know what it was? Is that I thought I had something. I had an itch in my nose, and I thought I had something in my nose, and I was like, I almost went like this. And I was like, yeah, and then I was like, Josh. All right.
That's my name.
That's going to happen a couple times tonight, by the way.
I'm probably on the same. There have been times like this past week where I've just been like, there's a word. I know the word. You know the word. I cannot come up with it. It's not happening.
The worst.
So, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It makes me look like I'm an idiot, but I just scoot past it. So today we're going to talk about, we're going to extend our series of should have seen. And it's one of those things where it's like, we've done this podcast for what, 10, 11, well, like 11, going on 12 years, 12 years, like almost 12 years this month. It'll be 12 years. That's crazy. I didn't even think about that till right now. So yes, we've been doing this podcast for 12 years, and there are certain movies that I haven't seen, and there are certain movies that you haven't seen. And this series that we've been doing on and off is meant to rectify that. We are going to talk about two movies today. We're going to talk about King Kong from 1933, of which I have not seen, and Gold Rush, the Charlie Chaplin Gold Rush from 1925, which you have not seen. So we'll start off with King Kong. If you meet somebody and then you're introduced to them in a business setting, and then they tell you their name like immediately, and you just say their name back to them very confidently, and then you move on, and then like you see them multiple times since then, and you're like, I know that guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know what his name is. And you get to a certain point where it's like too late to ask them, because you're like, we've been in 10 meetings together. Why do I not know this guy's name? That's what I feel like with King Kong. I feel embarrassed to not have seen King Kong, but now I've seen King Kong, so I don't have to feel embarrassed anymore. So, when did you see the original King Kong? Because there've been like 3 iterations, like big iterations of it.
I've seen all of them too.
I haven't seen the Jessica Lange one.
I did. I did. Yeah, I did. Back in the day, there was a movie theater, and they would do Saturday matinees, and the kids would all come, and then they would show like 4 or 5 films in a row. Parents would just drop you off.
Yep.
Pull up.
It's like the
drop
mall.
You off.
Just go.
Yeah. Like 10 years old. Bye. Can I have some money for get that out? So I saw the Jessica Lange one then. The original one, I think. We did like a movie marathon at my house when I was a kid, and it came on TV maybe. I was trying to remember. I remember being fascinated by it, and I remember thinking to myself, now I must have been a little bit older, because I thought to myself, oh, I get it. Like, I get why. Like, I was old enough to realize that technology had passed this, and that the special effects, the ape, the monkey, it was not real, but the emotional center to that film is intact. And I saw it again somewhere around college, and I thought, I'm going to be cynical about this. This can't be one of the best movies of all time. It's on everybody's top 100, blah, 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 blah. It's famous. You see Fay Wray and, King Kong on.
Who can scream like no other woman.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just,
Yeah. And
she's
then, of
like
course,
the original Scream Queen,
Yeah. And then, of course, Rocky Horror references her a couple of times. Rocky Horror Picture Show references her. Anyway, I saw it again, and I was probably in a college state of mind, and we'll leave it at that. And I remember coming out of it going, wow, I seriously understand why this film is considered one of the best of all time. I get it.Maybe not the best of all time, but considered a movie you should see if you're into movies. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I am glad that I waited this long to see it, because I know the background of special effects in movies and the history of that. And my kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this, was in the Star Wars, 80s movies type of a vein. And so I was like awed at, The Abyss and at the compositing done in Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and just like, things looking, to me, they looked photorealistic at the time. And so those were exciting to me. So I think if I would have seen King Kong at the time, I would have been like, oh, that's all herky jerky. And of course I'd seen like the the Rankin Bass, animations and the,
Claymation.
the
Yeah, I love that.
claymation.
I
and
love
all
that stuff.
So, I mean, I was used to that kind of animation. I'd seen that, as a kid, but this is meant to be a serious movie, and it's meant to be an action-packed movie with real stakes. And so I don't know if I would have received it as well as I received it this time. So in some ways, I'm kind of glad that I waited this long to see it, but especially since like I know how they did all that stuff now. I can understand the practicalities of how they did it, and a lot of the things that they did were very subtle but super effective as far as being able to translate and merge. They were doing Who Framed Roger Rabbit 60 years before Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, they were doing it back in the 30s. I mean, they were melding, live action and animation just in a different way. It wasn't cel-drawn animation and camera captured live action type of a thing. In post-production, they were melding it like in camera, and that stuff is just so interesting to me. And I love, digging into that and figuring out like how they did all that. And like they were in the same way that Douglas Trumbull was a pioneer on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and what George Lucas made into Industrial Light and Magic. We're doing all this stuff in Star Wars. These guys were doing it. Well, the main guy for the stop motion animation was O.B. O'Brien. And I thought it was Ray Harryhausen, the guy who did like Jason and the Argonauts and, all that stuff. And the, what was the one in the 80s? With Harry Hamlin? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It had like the mechanical owl.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Let's get Clash of the Titans.
There you go. I was gonna say Colossal. No, something with C. So yeah. There you go. You got that. You got that word.
I got it. I got the word. So it's all downhill from here. So yeah, those I'd seen those and I just assumed it was Ray Harryhausen. But this guy, O.B. O'Brien came before Ray Harryhausen. So I mean, it's like, he's like the original guy who was doing these kinds of things and coming up with these solutions to real practical problems, and inventing it on the fly, and was able to make a huge, all of these people together, be it actors or cinematographers or whatever, being able to make this. And I was kind of amazed. Now the script and the character development, I left a bit to be lacking in my opinion, especially at the beginning. It's like before they get to Skull Island, you're just kind of like, wow, you guys are really laying it on thick. The lead male actor is kind of like, well, I don't like women on the boat. And it's like, well, I wonder where this is going. So that part just was a bit, it was rough.
Both of these films have those, I wouldn't say issues, but signs of the time. And, there's a burly guy in Gold Rush. Come and kiss me.
Yeah, but there's also like strong-ish female characters though.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like Fay Wray's character in King Kong has had to like be on her own for so long that she's a survivor, and then same thing with the lead actress in Gold Rush. So I that actually was a little bit more, progressive or subversive or whatever to me, but it was the shoehorning in of like, you can't just have like a guy be attracted to a woman and like, he has to be like, oh, I'll never like a woman, especially not you. And then like 5 minutes later, he's like, oh, I think I love you. And it's like, well, okay.
And she's like, okay, sure.
I know, right? Well,
yeah, that's the problematic
a week later, or a week earlier, she was like, she didn't know where she was trying to steal an apple, So it's like,
well,
that's rough.
That really hasn't changed for a couple of decades. Cause even in the, early 80s, mid 80s with the Breakfast Club, Bender is mean to Claire, Claire's a
and
fat
somehow
girl's
they
name.
end up together.
Yeah, which is endearing, but I mean, like he does some really obnoxious stuff to her. But yeah, so that's problematic. You know what I'm going to say about the special effects is that back then in the 20s and 30s, when they dreamt it, they had to figure out how to make it.
Yep.
They didn't just have to dream it based on the knowledge that they could just plug it into a computer and create it, or plug it into a mold. You can build a 3D mold,
or even look it up on YouTube and see how people before them did it. Nobody before them did it.
Yeah.
nobody was doing it.
Now there are people who are doing that nowadays. James Cameron, Fincher, they're developing things based on the needs. Nolan, based on the needs of what they need to do in that particular situation. But I mean, because you would have, what's that handheld camera that's on the big pole that's right in front of you? It's not handheld, but it's like.
Oh, you mean Steadicam?
Yeah, Steadicam.
Yeah, we've got those at the TV station.
Yeah,
so
that didn't exist how many years ago? You know, that was
and Garrett Brown came up with it in the late 70s, and he had done a couple movies before The Shining, but The Shining was kind of like the big coming out party for the Steadicam.
That's amazing.
But so as far as the effects go, the thing that like I loved about the effects is like we were talking about the melding of the practical effects and the whether it's animatronics. Okay, I'm gonna say one kind of throw a little bit of shade on the thing.
You wouldn't be you if you didn't.
Well, because the rest of it's gonna be it's gonna be flowers for everyone. But
don't get me wrong. That's not a criticism. That is just a fact of who you are. I love it. It's a good thing.
The fact is, if all of it looked really like janky, like I'd probably be like give it a pass and be like, you know what, they did the best they could. But the fact that almost all, I mean, I think all of the stop motion animation was amazing, and how they melded it with real film, clips with filmed people on the screen at the same time. That was amazing. But whenever they would do a close-up of King Kong's face, instead of doing a close-up of the miniature, which had like very little detail, they did a close-up of like a full-on like life-size, as I'm sure the thing was 15 feet tall. His face was probably 15 feet tall, and they had guys moving levers and opening his eyelids and opening his mouth. It looked really childish. It just looked super childish and not threatening at all. Whereas when you've got the stop motion animation parts and he's like, grasping for Fay Ray, or he's, swatting away a Tyrannosaurus Rex, I mean, like, you're just like, okay, I believe it. I'm here for it. So that was the part that, it's like every time I saw that, it was just kind of like, oh man, like I wish they could have come up with a better way to do a close up of his face, or even his hand looked great whenever Fay Ray was like in his hand, like that all looked good, and there was motion, and the hairs were moving and all that stuff. I thought that looked cool, but then those face shots were just like, ugh, this looks so fake. But and the other thing that was cool to me, and I don't know if you noticed it, was that, whenever they would transition from a person acting into the stop motion animation version of King Kong grabbing the person, there would have to be a transition between the person and a doll. And sometimes they would achieve that by the person crawling behind a rock, and then he reaches behind the rock and grabs the person, and so that's their transition point, or these I mean, some of it's just like framing. It's like, okay, the people are on the right side of the screen, King Kong's on the left side of the screen, that's fine, but they didn't shy away from the real true interactions, the touching of the people and the beast. So that was really cool to me, where they were like, what's going to really make this land emotionally and just like and as a spectacle is if you can actually see the beast interact with the people. And so that, I think, was, I mean, that's a tall task to do, and they did it great. The scenes where they had the people right next to King Kong, the way that they did those was they had little mini projectors. So they would film the people on essentially a set, and then they would have little screens, like little screens embedded in the miniatures of the sets. So, and then, the people would start manipulating King Kong one frame at a time. And every time they would like move King Kong's head, they would flip the projector. It was like instead of a film projector, it was more like a slide projector. They would go to the next slide, and it would be, Fay Ray like moving her arm a fraction, a couple inches, and then they would take a picture of that frame, and then they would go in and they would move King Kong's head again, and then they would flip the slide projector to the next frame of film that they shot yesterday or whatever. And that's how they would do that, so that when you would capture that scene with another camera, you would you would automatically be able to see the motion of King Kong and also the natural motion of the people that had been shot the day before. They were doing green screen and blue screen, 50 years before that was a thing. So, and they've made it work and it looks amazing. And I have no notes. So it's great. So that part just bowled me over. I was so amazed at that. So there's other problematic things as far as like representation of the island tribe and all that stuff. It's just kind of like, I mean, that's tough because they didn't know or care back then. So it was just kind of, but the other thing is that it wasn't like they weren't the bad guys, they just weren't the bad guys. They were just, in fact, they helped at the end. So, it's kind of like it could have been worse. It definitely could have been worse. But.
Well, you can't, if you don't start somewhere, you can't end up anywhere else. I mean, you live and learn. And, that's a prime example of why, if anybody says nowadays, oh, that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. Okay. The reason why we're coming closer to you thinking it doesn't exist anymore, because you don't have blatant things that you understand that happened back in the history of King Kong and the representation and that kind of stuff. Not to get on a soapbox, but it still does happen. It's just a greater world that we live in. But without examples like that to look back on and go, we're not going to hire all of a certain ethnicity for all of the help or the wait staff or the drivers or whatever. We're going to make it, they're going to be part of the crowd and stuff like that. That happened on that show, Project Greenlight. Remember that show?
Oh, yeah. We did a podcast on one of the seasons.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. There was a producer and she was like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're just not doing that. And they were like, oh, yeah, we shouldn't do that. So live and learn and move on. The thing that I found the most intriguing about King Kong is that you really honestly feel bad for him. You realize he's the good guy. He's taken out of his home environment. He's put on display. He doesn't want to be put on display. He doesn't, he already had to fight to exist, period. And now he's fighting creatures that he didn't really, I guess he knows humans exist, obviously, because of the people on the island with him.
But the sacrifice that they,
that's true.
That's hard to like, does he just like beautiful women and he like takes them someplace that we don't see? Because I don't know if he had all kinds of opportunities to kill Fay Ray and eat her or whatever, but he didn't. So,
well, because he falls in love with her.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the whole battle at the end. Yeah. So there's some weirdness to the sacrifice, and human sacrifice is a part of our history. It's part of our I went to the Mayan temples when I was in Mexico on my cruise in October, and the first thing the guy said, yes, these were human sacrifice places, there and there. Now move on, and get it in, get it out. So it's part of our existence, for better, for worse. But the emotional integrity of the film is more intense than I expected it to ever be. I do remember thinking to myself, I feel bad. I feel bad that they're treating him that way. I feel bad. I didn't feel like, oh, big old monkey, let's use it. Let's make it a spectator sport. I felt bad when he was being shown in the theater. I felt bad for when, just like she does, when he's dying and they tear him up. And so I remember the emotional integrity of the film clearly. That's why when people speak of it, I go, oh yeah, I see why people talk about this film to this day.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's hard because you could totally read this movie as if he would have just stayed in his lane and not decided that he wanted this woman all for himself, then he would be okay. And that's a really rough interpretation of the movie, but I think that the hard part is nobody really gets theirs in the end except for him. And the director's going to move on, go do another movie, and nobody's going to know the wiser, and they're all going to go watch his movies, and he's going to make a bunch of money, and everybody's going to move on. And there wasn't really any introspection. Whereas I think movies nowadays, in general, I'm being very general, but it seems like movies nowadays try to not leave things unsaid. for better or worse, but there's a little bit more of an onus on, and it's not even like a Hays Code of like, oh, this is a noir where, Fred McMurray has to die in the end because the woman cheated on her husband with him. It's not that. It's not Double Indemnity specific or noir specific, like these people can't win. It's not, mandated, but we just kind of inherently, it seems like especially a lot of popular movies now don't really let that happen as much anymore. And I think that there's obviously exceptions to that. But it's hard to go back and see a movie like this where it's just kind of like, no, but like everybody's lives are the same.
Yeah.
Except for King Kong's who's dead.
Well, first of all, the thing about wanting her all to himself, well, they could have gotten her back and left. They didn't. They got back in
exactly
and took
there
him.
was no reason to take him, but
no, I mean, but if you really, the moral of the story comes from the viewer, not from the actors or not from the characters. The characters don't learn anything, but if you don't learn something by going, that was wrong what they did to him, period. He was defending himself regardless of whether or not it was that he thought she was his and so forth and so on. The moral of the story comes from your own being, thinking to yourself, hey, no, this was not right. What they did was not right. It's not right that he's getting away with it. It's not right that the director's going to move on. And she's kind of left there kind of with that feeling. You kind of have that feeling like she's like, what was all of this for?
Yeah,
and
I guess maybe her reaction is a little bit different, but
because
everybody else is just happy that she's safe. But
if everybody else wasn't like they were, then they would have never taken him to begin with. And there are people in this world, there's a few of them in existence now, who don't seem to be paying any consequences for any of their actions. Now, I don't know whether or not people will eventually, or, karma gets people eventually. I have no idea. Who am I to say? But like I said, the moral of the story comes from how you feel about the film. If you're like, yeah, the director got away, and yeah, they killed Kong, I don't think that's the type of person I would want to hang out with. But so the fact that we felt bad for him dying, we felt bad for her that she saw the genuine affection that he had, be it twisted on some level, and felt a human emotion towards him. That's a good thing. And that's where the story ends for me, not necessarily they didn't get their due. Yeah, it's another movie.
Yeah. So what do you think about Quentin Tarantino's theory of this that he inserted into Inglourious Bastards when they were playing the game where they wrote a character name on a card and stuck it on their head?
Yeah.
And then they go through this whole, they're describing, it's the German August Diehl, it's the German major who has the King Kong card on his head. And he's like, all right, tell me about myself. And then they're like, okay, so you were in your own land and then somebody came and then they found you and then they stole you and then they used you to make money and all this stuff. And then they treated you like a subhuman. And he said, the plight of the black man going to the United States. And it was like, whoa. So that obviously is what, that's a Quentin Tarantino's kind of corollary, I guess. It's like how you can get those mixed up. I don't know if, David O. Selznick really was selling that when he was producing this movie, but it is an interesting parallel.
You could pretty much guess that wasn't. Well, the fact that how they describe it makes it sound like a parallel. And when you describe it like that, taken from your homeland, blah, 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 blah. So
used, sold, used.
Yeah. And I mean, if people want to put that on this film nowadays, then absolutely. It's
a reading.
Yeah, absolutely it is. But I don't think that was I have no idea. But it would, if it was the intention to subvert the story with that, it just doesn't sound like the sign of the times, but who knows?
He definitely has other theories. His there was some movie he was in where he had a theory about Top Gun. And
that's I'll ride your tail any day.
Is that what did he say? No, he said I'll be your wingman every day, any day.
Okay.
Is that what he's? All right.
I don't know.
There's a lot of.
Remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of homoerotic stuff going on in Top Gun. You're not gonna deny that. But yeah. So anyway. So I think this is not the first time, and I'm sure it's not the last time that Quentin Tarantino has like injected his theories on film into other movies. But I thought that I did get reminded of that while watching this movie. I was like, okay, all right. I mean, I can see it. I can see the parallel there. So
sure. As soon as you started describing it, it was like, oh, I know what. Obviously,
where this is going.
Obviously, I remember as soon as you made a point to it. But yeah.
Yeah. What about Gold Rush? How many Charlie Chaplin movies have you seen?
I knew you were going to ask me that. None.
Okay. Wow. Oh, this is not a good one to start with.
No.
Really? But that's okay.
Okay. So I was trying to remember. I think I perceived that I have seen a film all the way through, but I can't remember watching a movie all the way through.
There's three guys and I've only seen like a couple of each of their movies. I mean, I've seen more Charlie Chaplin, but like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, and Harold Lloyd. Those three guys are kind of like, we're all around at the same time, silent movie era, did their own stunts, directed their own stuff, all that. So yeah.
Yeah. So no, this is the very first one I've seen from beginning, middle to end, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I mean, it's good. I mean, it's good, but like, I would say like if somebody's trying to get into Charlie Chaplin, like I would say like The Kid is good.
Yeah,
Good kind of easy way to get in. And then Modern Times, that's the other one that I've seen. And Modern Times was fun. I mean, Modern Times was I actually just got I got some like super great deals on movies. I just got the Marx Brothers. Let's see, it's Coconuts, Animal Crackers, Monkey Business, Horse Feathers, and Duck Soup. So
Wow.
I got all of those on for $20 on DVD or Blu-ray. So that I'm excited to go through. I mean, I've seen Duck Soup and I've seen Animal Crackers, but yeah, that's similar comedy, but also with a story. So and Marx Brothers are kind of like whatever, take the piss out of the subject matter that they're dealing with. Whereas I think Charlie Chaplin is not as pointed in his critiques of humanity until he gets a little bit older. But The Great Dictator is very pointed in its critique of humanity and of the world at the time, because that was made in 1940 and it has a lot to say, and it's a great movie. But so this movie is Gold Rush, and so you just went into it blind.
Correct.
Like a bunch of guys in an Alaskan snowstorm.
Yeah.
No, but they call him the lone prospector, but he kind of like wanders, you know, and he just comes, that's the tramp, that's the tramp character. He's wandering through things and coming across things. Yeah.
Well, what does it start with? Dramatic comedy? Is that what it says at the beginning of the film? I can't remember it says something like drama. It doesn't say dramedy, which I hate when they put those two words together. Don't hate it, but I think it's silly. Anyway, I was like, that's exactly what it is. He's infinitely sad, but he's buffoonish and funny. He's, in 12 inches of snow and blistering snowstorms and 10-foot snow drifts, and he's wearing the same outfit he always wears, which with the exception of, then when he loses his Charlie Chaplin shoe, he
cooks it.
Yeah, he cooks it. That's right. So I don't know. I thought it was endearing. I thought it was funny. It's really three different movies if you think about it.
Yeah.
Three different movies. The first one being him being trapped in the house.
The cabin.
The cabin with the two guys, and how he survives that. And some of the trickery is amazing. How they make that thing move, and it's amazing.
Well, and also like the best scene in that was when the two other guys were fighting over the shotgun.
Yeah.
And like every single place that he moved, they somehow pointed the shotgun at him. And I was like, this is so orchestrated. I mean, it is literally like a dance, the whole thing.
Well, the whole movie. But that was going to be one of my first points. The almost just in the nick of time, and just the near miss. And it's from the very beginning when he's walking across the mountain. He jumps over the one mountain to the other one. The bear comes out. He doesn't even see it. Keeps walking. The bear goes back in. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And so it's a near miss movie. So I don't know what else to think other than I thought it was fun, and his timing is unbelievable. And I didn't realize that's where the dancing bread scene came from. I didn't realize that's where which was very famously recreated by Robert Downey Jr. in his first Oscar nomination, playing Charlie Chaplin. I didn't know that. So I thought it was cool that the very first one I saw all the way through, at least that I remember seeing all the way through. I might have seen him when I was younger and just don't remember it. It'll be one of those things where I'll watch it again and be like, oh wait, I have seen this, but I don't. I couldn't recall it. But I thought it was very cool that was one of the most famous scenes he's ever had, and it was in the very first movie that I saw all the way from beginning, middle, and end. So, what could you say bad about it?
It's not much.
It's fun. It's fun,
and it's a practical. I mean, it's made in 1925. That's just amazing to me how pristine it looked. I mean, they got some really good. I watched the one on the Criterion Channel, and like, they got some amazing prints, and they were able to recreate the 1925 version because Charlie Chaplin changed it and made some, I think he made some changes to the music, and he did all this other stuff to it. And so the 1925 version that I watched, I mean, was what I remembered. And I skipped through a few things because I've seen it before, but yeah, it was, it looked great to me. And it's large scale filmmaking. It really is large scale filmmaking, but especially in 1925, I'm just like, I'm bowled over. It's over 100 years old. The thing's 101 years old.
That's crazy.
I can't imagine what they had to do.
So it really does look cold in that movie, and it really does look like snow. Is it because it's black and white that the snow looks so realistic, or were they using asbestos or something?
I hope it wasn't asbestos. I really do.
Because it's all over the place.
I mean, all the cabin was in all the cabin and the surrounding. You can tell that was on a set. A large set.
Yeah.
They probably had an interior cabin set, and then they had an exterior cabin set. But but that was all on a lit set. But
what about the town?
I'm not sure. I mean, back then I think he was in California at the time.
Yeah.
In 25, because before that they were making movies in New Jersey, so they were like right on the the banks of whatever river it is in New Jersey, and then they people started migrating out to California around the Babylon, the time of the movie Babylon. And that's right when they were transitioning. What was it, like 27, 28? Is that when Jazz Singer was somewhere around there? So 25 is 25 is still it's still like staunchly in the silent era. But that is
27.
Yeah, so right there, I mean, we're right in the middle of the big, everybody's going into the movies every weekend. Everybody's will have seen this movie when it came out. Like, that's just I guess people with enough disposable income to be able to, have a night on the town will have seen this movie. So I'm sure it was just everywhere. So the craft of this was pretty amazing. And at this same year, the O.B. O'Brien came out with The Lost World, with not obviously the Steven Spielberg Lost World, but the Lost World, which was like the dinosaur movie, the claymation dinosaur movie. And so I think he probably recycled a lot of that stuff for King Kong too. But yeah, that year was a pretty big year for film. I mean, and you've got like Jacques Tourneur and like a bunch of other filmmakers that are making big movies, and everybody's seeing them. I mean, talk about like a monoculture, like when there's however many movies there were, a handful of movies a year or whatever, way less movies than there were, especially 20 years ago. And even now, I'm sure. So it was really hard to make movies back then just because it was so insanely expensive. So when you see a movie like this, it's everybody's on their A game, and you've got the best of the best, And
so
I don't know if he had his own. I'm not sure if Charlie Chaplin had his own studio then or not, but maybe.
Did you do any research about how he? Did they rehearse it like a dance? Did they actually had to rehearse that stuff over and over again in order to get it right? But what did they actually do? Did they, choreograph it?
I'm sure that they did.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they did, just as far as block. I mean, it's blocking, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're doing.
Still, it's a lot. It's like a dance more than blocking.
And that all these people came, like a lot of the like established actors, I'm sure, came from vaudeville and were used to performing night after night after night after night, and choreographed, things, whether be they, musical acts or, other things, whether it's a farce or whatever, like they're just like churning through these things. So it probably wasn't that big of a deal to do it, 10 or 20 times, in front of the camera. And to get it right, one of those times. So
well, anyway, the eyeliner, everybody's wearing eyeliner. Everybody, guys, girls, men, woman, real men, older men.
I think it's the two-way thing of, they're coming from theater, number one, and number two, the projectors that they're using in the movie theaters or the Nickelodeons or whatever they're playing them in are not that great. Like by the time you get a print, like it may have gone through multiple theaters by that time. So the prints are going to be degraded. So you need that contrast between the face and the eyes. And so but what we're seeing is like the most pristine print imaginable, or, somehow like a scan of the negative or something. Like we're seeing something that the filmmakers never thought was going to be seen in that fidelity. And so, we're able to see all that. It's, just like when TV went to HD, the on-air anchors had to change how they did their makeup. It was just a different, it's not that they hated it. It's just that like, you don't have to put on the same kind of makeup in the same way. Yeah. To look neutral or to look like you don't have makeup on,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And talk about stock characters. There's a bunch of stock characters, and talk about getting your due. I mean, she kind of learns her lesson, and, the guy still gets her. Although actually, in the end, they, find each other once he becomes a millionaire, that is, or a billionaire or whatever he is. But, she does learn a lesson, and she does, he does break her heart, and vice versa. And the other thing is that during the New Year's Eve party, when he invites all the women over and he's got it all decorated, there's that live Christmas tree with real candles on it. And always,
and you're like, oh my God.
It always freaks me out. I don't know what it is. But
it's a dry evergreen, like a fir or something. It's like, what? There's somebody just like breathes on it and that's it. It's gone. I
can't understand why they don't have them like in little
like a sheath or something.
Something just to, but they're just burning away, and they're tilting, and they're, I guess that's not the thing you are supposed to focus on, but I look at the set design, and I look at what difference of a decoration was back in the 20s versus now, and how it's real evergreen and how it's popcorn and stuff like that. I find that fascinating.
But you're also a huge Christmas, Halloween decorations person.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it marks the time. It marks what we had to, we didn't have artificial trees, or maybe we did, but they weren't used like they are now. They're made to. Yeah, I don't think we did either.
Well, there wasn't plastic back then. I mean, there wasn't any kind of like vinyl, whatever back then.
Asbestos, but not plastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about with the film?
Good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're in the mood to watch something, but not really in the mood to give yourself over to something crazy, you don't want to watch some poignant hacks,
dramedy,
modern dramedy. Put it on, because it is thrilling and it's engaging, and it's, it's a silent film. You don't get to watch those that often. I think this is the first silent films we've talked about since we've done the podcast. And there's there's something to be said about turning off all of the sound to the world and just paying attention, because they do that thing where they say lines that don't come up, that they don't print, but at the same time you can see people's intentions. So
they're telegraphing it. But also you get the music forecasting and telegraphing exactly what's going on. I mean, they're like earlier on in the movie where, you know, he's getting blown away by all the, you know, by all the wind. They open the door in the cabin and he gets blown away. While that's happening, they're playing Flight of the Bumblebee. So, you know, it's like, that's something that people know, and they're going to have heard that before and be like, oh, this is perfect. You know, it's just like, it's like, you know, a needle drop in a, you know, a Cameron Crowe movie. It's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you get all of that still back in 1925, but
before it actually all happened.
Exactly.
It is the beginning of it. It's amazing.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. So, all right. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can go to YouTube and search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. And we'll see you next time.